I remember the night my brother died like it was yesterday. It was raining, one of those late autumn storms that slammed against the windows like fists of the past. I was 17. My brother, Daniel, had just turned 21. He was my protector, my best friend, the only soul who ever made the house we grew up in feel safe. Mama had already passed. Cancer took her fast, a quiet, unfair thief. After that, it was just the three of us, me, Daniel, and our father. But on that night, a drunk driver crossed the yellow line. Daniel's car was thrown off the highway and into a ditch. The police came to our door at 2:13 a.m. I answered because father was passed out drunk on the couch, his usual state. The officer's voice was soft. His eyes were too gentle. I knew. Daniel was gone. And so was the last bit of light in our house. Father was a mean drunk. But he was never truly evil, not until Daniel died. Daniel had kept him in check, somehow. I realize that now. With him gone, father's grief didn't look like tears. It looked like fists through drywall and silence that stank of bourbon. The funeral was a blur. I wore Daniel's old hoodie under my coat. I felt like I was wearing his spirit just to survive the day. People kept telling me, "Be strong." They didn't know that strength had already been buried 6 feet under. After that, father changed. He stared at me too long. Touched my shoulder too tightly. When I wore a tank top in the summer heat, he'd tell me to put something decent on. I thought maybe I was imagining it. Maybe grief had broken my brain. But I wasn't imagining it. Not even close. It was a Sunday night. Late. I was in the kitchen making tea because my stomach hurt. It had hurt a lot lately. Father came in from the living room, reeking of whiskey. "You look just like your mother," he slurred. I froze. He stepped closer. "Always thought you would grow up to be beautiful. Didn't think it'd hit me like this." I backed away. "I'm going to bed." He grabbed my wrist. Hard. "You think you're too good for me now?" he asked. His breath was poison. I yanked my arm free and ran to my room. I pushed my dresser against the door. I cried all night. It didn't stop there. After that night, I began marking the calendar. Each red X stood for something I couldn't say out loud. Some were for the nights he stared too long. Others were for when he touched me, too close, too firm, too wrong. Sometimes he just whispered things outside my door. Things no father should ever think, let alone say. I didn't tell anyone. Because no one would believe me. Father was a war veteran. A respected man in our small town. A widower. A grieving father. And I was the troubled daughter. Quiet. Moody. Suspicious. Perfect target. It started with nausea. Then dizziness. I thought it was stress, all the nightmares and panic attacks. But then I missed my period. I tried to deny it. Pretend it was irregular. But after 2 months, I bought a test. Stole it, actually. I couldn't afford one. I waited in the locked bathroom, hands shaking, staring at the stick like it held the weight of the universe. 2 pink lines. Pregnant. And I hadn't kissed a boy in 2 years. I threw up so hard I passed out. After the test, I couldn't stop shaking. I hid the stick in a shoebox at the very back of my closet. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't even say the word pregnant out loud. That night, father came into my room. I hadn't locked the door, hadn't thought I needed to. He sat at the edge of my bed and ran his fingers through my hair like he used to when I was 5. "I miss your brother," he said. I didn't respond. My throat was tight. "I miss him so much, it hurts," he whispered. Then he kissed my temple. I felt everything inside me snap. "I'm pregnant," I blurted out. "You did this. You did this." He froze. His eyes turned cold. Mean. Like glass on a frozen lake. "You watch your mouth, girl," he hissed. "Don't you dare try to ruin me." He stood up. Slammed the door so hard it rattled the windows. I slid into the closet, curled up under my old coats, and stayed there until morning. I packed a bag that night. Left the house at dawn. I had nowhere to go. No mother. No brother. No friends I could trust with something like this. I ended up sleeping behind the old train station in town, under a loading dock. The cold bit into my skin. But it still felt safer than home. In the morning, I walked to the free clinic and asked to speak with someone, anyone. The nurse who greeted me was kind. She had silver hair and a gentle voice. She asked me if I was okay. I broke down. Her name was Marcia. She pulled me into her office, gave me water, and sat with me for an hour as I told her everything, the pregnancy, the abuse, the death of my brother, all of it. She didn't flinch. She didn't ask, "Are you sure?" She just said, "You're safe now." She called a social worker. They found me a temporary shelter. It wasn't much, a cot and a metal locker, but it was the first place I could sleep without fear. I stayed there for 2 weeks. The baby was still growing. But so was something else inside me. Anger. The social worker helped me get a court-ordered DNA test. She said, "We need to prove the paternity. That way we can open a case." I was scared. But I also wanted justice, whatever that even looked like. Father refused to comply at first. Said I was making up lies because I was mentally unstable. Claimed I had a boyfriend I was hiding. But the test didn't lie. 99.9999% match. My father was the father of my unborn child. I thought I'd feel relief. Instead, I felt numb. I was at the shelter when they came to tell me. 2 officers. They said my father had been arrested at the hardware store where he worked. He spit in one of their faces. When they searched his home, they found alcohol, weapons, and journals, his journals. Full of rants, delusions, and some very dark entries about me. It was more than enough. But the trial wouldn't be easy. The town still believed he was just a grieving man. I had to prove who he really was. The courthouse smelled like dust and old paper. Everything echoed, heels on tile, whispers in corners, the tension pressing down like thunderclouds. I sat in the witness room for over an hour before I was called. My palms were slick with sweat. My stomach was swelling now, 5 months. I wore a loose sweater, but it didn't hide the truth. When they walked my father in, handcuffed and stone-faced, he looked at me. Not like a father. Like a man who had lost control of his favorite toy. His lawyer painted him as a victim of grief. Said my brother's death had driven him mad with sorrow. That I was troubled, vindictive, ungrateful. They pulled up my school records, 1 bad grade in sophomore year. A short suspension once when I slapped a boy who groped me in class. They painted me as unstable. But I was ready. I stood, my hands trembling, and told the court everything. From the night Daniel died to the closet full of broken hangers to the bruises on my wrists I used to cover with makeup. Then I pulled out the journal. Mine. Pages soaked in ink and tears. The one I'd written in every night when I felt like screaming. I read 3 passages aloud. The courtroom was silent. Even his lawyer stopped flipping papers. And then came the DNA results. The room stiffened. Even his own face went pale. He was the father of his own daughter's baby. It took weeks for the jury to come back. Each day felt like a decade. I was staying at a women's shelter now, still hiding from the public eye. The town had split down the middle. Some people believed me, called me brave, said I was a survivor. Others called me a liar, a destroyer of reputations. Why wait so long to say anything, they asked. Why stay silent? Because fear is a cage. And when the monster lives in your house, silence feels like safety. Finally, the verdict came. Guilty. My father was sentenced to 35 years without parole. They charged him with sexual assault, incest, child endangerment, and obstruction of justice. I didn't cry when the judge read the sentence. I just exhaled. Like I'd been holding my breath since I was 12. She was born in May. Her name is Hope. The labor was long. Over 22 hours. I screamed into a towel, gripped the rails of the hospital bed, prayed to a mother I wished was still alive. When they placed her in my arms, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Not because I was strong, but because I had survived. Despite everything, my body had made something beautiful. Hope had my nose. Daniel's eyes. She was innocent. Untouched by the horrors that brought her here. I cried and whispered to her. You will never know fear. I promise you. I kept writing him letters in prison. Not to send. Just to release the rage. Some were one line. You ruined everything. Others were pages long. I hate you. I love you. I don't know what I feel. You stole Daniel. Then you stole me. One day, I burned them all. Ashes in a tin coffee can, scattered in the creek behind the shelter. I watched the smoke rise and thought of all the memories he tried to poison, Christmases, birthdays, bedtime stories. He didn't get to keep those. I was reclaiming them. People love redemption arcs. They want the victim to smile and say, I'm fine now. But healing? It's messy. It's ugly. Some nights, I rocked Hope in my arms and sobbed until my face was raw. Other mornings, I woke up numb, unable to move. I started therapy. Slowly. Hesitantly. The therapist asked, What do you want? I said, to feel clean again. It took 2 years before I could even look at a man without flinching. It took 3 to walk past my childhood home without nausea. But one day, I laughed again. Real, loud laughter. And that's when I knew. The monster didn't win. People often asked if I ever visited him in prison. No. Not once. But I did drive to the prison once. Parked in the visitor lot. Stared at the gray stone walls, the barbed wire curling like thorns against the sky. For an hour, I just sat there gripping the steering wheel. I wasn't there for him. I was there for me. To prove I could face it and walk away. I watched a young girl, maybe 9, exit the building, holding a paper drawing and her mother's hand. Her eyes were tired in a way no child's eyes should ever be. I started my car and drove away. It was bound to come eventually. She was 8 when she first asked. Mommy, do I have a daddy? I froze. My hands were in the sink, washing dishes. I stared at the sponge like it could rescue me. I dried my hands. Turned around. Sat on the floor with her. And told the truth. Not all of it, but enough. Your father wasn't a good man. He hurt Mommy. But he's not in our lives, and he never will be. She nodded. Quiet for a while. Then she hugged me so hard my ribs ached. And she said, "You're enough for me." On Hope's 10th birthday, I got a letter from the prison. His handwriting. Shaky. Almost unrecognizable. He wrote, "I know you'll never forgive me. I deserve that. I still think of Daniel every day. I still don't know why I did what I did to you. I don't even know who I am anymore." He included a sketch of me as a child, and another of Hope, clearly drawn from the photo in our local newspaper from a school event. That scared me more than anything else. I burned it. Without hesitation. The past was not welcome in our home. Years passed. I finished college. Studied social work. Trauma advocacy. Because if my pain could be used for anything, it would be this, helping others break free before they bled as long as I did. I started working with teens in shelters. Girls like I used to be, silent, terrified, but brimming with buried fire. Some called me Grandma Hope, laughing. Because by then, Hope was grown. She had her own daughter. Yes, me, a grandma. A title I never dreamed I'd carry with pride. And every time I looked at my granddaughter, I felt Daniel. I felt Mama. I felt pieces of myself I thought were long gone. A few years ago, I was asked to speak at a survivors conference. I almost said no. But something told me this was my moment. So I stood at the podium. Looked into a crowd full of women who carried their own invisible bruises. And I said, "I'm not here as a victim. I'm here as evidence. That monsters can break you, but they can't bury you, not forever." My father took my brother. He tried to take me. But I built a new life from the rubble. One where love grows in places hate once lived. And if you're sitting there thinking, "I can't survive this," I promise you, you can. Because I did. And I was just a girl with no one left to love me. But now? I am a grandmother. A healer. A warrior. To anyone who has lived through the unimaginable. I want you to hear this clearly: what happened to you was not your fault. It doesn't matter who they were, how long it lasted, or how quiet you had to be, your silence was survival, not consent. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not too far gone. You are not alone. There is a life waiting for you on the other side of the pain, a life where love is gentle, sleep is peaceful, and the past no longer holds the power to define your worth. Healing is not a straight line. Some days you'll feel like you're drowning again. But even on your worst days, just waking up is an act of rebellion. Choosing to breathe is proof of your strength. One day, your story might help someone else survive their own storm. And that's how we heal, together. You are worthy of safety. You are worthy of joy. And most of all, you are worthy of a life that is completely your own. Stay. Fight. Live. Because you deserve to. With all the strength and love in the world. I am a survivor, and a grandma who lived to tell it. Thanks for listening. Like this video and subscribe for more inspirational stories.